What do you think about
I
the
know,
new
but that's your
Hoya and the
daughter.
videos coming out?
Well, I hope they all come out soon.
You're
What do
hopeful
you
for them to come out?
Yeah, I want all of them to come out.
Gypsy's
I
not
want.
worried?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I think that it's important for everyone to see
Hey,
everything.
Tina, keep making content.
Hey friends, I found some more interesting stuff now that I'm able to search the email document again that I thought would be fun to go over with y'all. But first off, I wanted to address something that we've got from the crime Ryan Anderson here. Let's see what he's got to say, friends.
like? Y'all have no idea what our conversations were like. We would joke around, and I sent that, like, look at this. You could wear this as a joke. And it was a girl fox costume. Like, y'all need to chill out. Like, y'all are ridiculous. I didn't take a pic in that costume. That was not me. Number one, that was online. Fucking idiots. Like, yeah, we read all the emails. Read all the emails. Yeah, that's fine. Because all I thought was all these foxes. Y'all are ridiculous. Pixie. They reaching, babe. Just reaching. Yeah. They have nothing better to do, so they reach. Why? Then why didn't we do it? Oh yeah, because we didn't get into that shit. And y'all can't take jokes. Look at idiots, man. Anyway, that's the last I'm going to talk about it. Y'all keep sending all the foxes you want, but I don't have a furry costume. Never did, never will. Sorry. Just a joke.
So I read these emails, this little exchange from Gypsy and Ryan in date order. Gypsy literally the first introduced this by saying, I have decided I want to try furry sex. My suit will be a pink husky with cleavage. What do you want to be? To which they apparently talked on the phone, but then we have an email from Ryan, and in the middle of it, he says, I'm glad you liked my pictures with my dog. You should get that furry fox picture today at some point. It's different, but in a good way, and could be a lot of fun also. Haha. So the context there is he's talking about pictures of himself. And then, as we keep in mind, Gypsy has already said instantly when she introduced this that she wants to be a husky. So why would Ryan be sending her pictures of a girl fox suit? None of that makes sense in the context of these emails. But then even more so whenever we see Gypsy's reply back to him. She says, I got the fox pic. I like that one best. Okay, so here is my idea for a suit. A curvy pink and black husky. It feels, regardless of what Crime Ryan Anderson wants to say, friends, it feels very, very obvious to me that he sent a picture of himself in a fox suit. What do y'all think, friends? We know Ryan thinks I'm reaching. That's okay. Keep on watching, Ryan. I'll keep making content. But Ryan's always going to think that about anyone who doesn't just speak so lovingly about he is GypsyRose. So I want to know what y'all think, friends. Am I right or am I reaching? Anyway, let's move on to the point of this video. My usual disclaimer, these emails were obtained through the Freedom of Information Act and the Missouri Sunshine Law. All prisoner communications are subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. Okay, so this email here went out on May 12th, 2021. And Gypsy is talking about Anne Rice here. She says, I've read a few chapters of the Anne Rice Sleeping Beauty series. Books like that are not allowed, but someone had a copy and she let me read for a few days. It was very enticing. I've never read her vampire novels, but I've watched the movie versions many times. My mother was an extra in Interview with a Vampire. She was in the background on one scene. I can recite that movie word for word. LOL. When I was like 6, I would do the scene where Blank gets all her hair off. I was so cute. LOL. I've never been to a Ren fair, but I want to go. My future style of clothing is medieval meets new age, kind of like steampunk, but more Renaissance. I like past style dresses and corsets. Now, I know a lot of people have wondered whether or not this particular story is true about Dee Dee being an extra in Interview with a Vampire, because Gypsy just throws out random lies with no rhyme or reason, often at times. Personally, I think it is because they would have been near New Orleans whenever Interview with a Vampire was being filmed. And, I know from having a lot of friends who've lived in New Orleans over the last few decades that it's really not that hard to become an extra. If you're on site there, there's often so many different things filming there. So from what I understand from people I know, being an extra on something filmed in New Orleans is just kind of a matter of, like they say in real estate, location, location, location. You're there, you're available. I've never seen Interview with a Vampire, and I've been intending on watching it since this came out. I just haven't had time. But I remember last year, someone on TikTok found a scene of some people walking through a street in New Orleans there that they thought was Dee Dee, but I can't find that clip anymore. If anyone knows where it is, please email it to me. But anyway, I said all that to say I really think she was, and I think Gypsy was obsessed with this movie. I think she took random fantasy storylines trying to create a narrative for herself from a lot of different things, like the V.C. Andrews book and Twilight, we know that. Obviously from some Disney movies and whatever she got obsessed with. But I really think Interview with a Vampire is a big one. Since I haven't seen the movie, I was trying to kind of go read over the plot line the other day. At the end, whenever Claudia and Louis decide to murder Lestat, Claudia doesn't want to pretend to be their child anymore, something like that. Forgive me if there's any Interview with a Vampire aficionados here. Since I haven't seen it and I'm going by reviews, I'm probably getting a lot of details very annoyingly wrong. I'm sorry. But at the end, they decide to murder Lestat. They don't get it quite accomplished. And one of the things that is supposed to be one of the ways to make sure that he is an immortal vampire is actually dead is that his head is severed. But Louis can't sever it all the way. And so Lestat kind of survives. Anyway, it just made me think of the big gash on the back of Dee Dee's neck. And the fact that whenever I'm reading Gypsy talking about her mom's little voodoo stuff here in her emails, in her prison emails, I get the impression Gypsy still believes that. Like if that even happened, I don't know if Dee Dee actually did a tongue spell. If she did it all wrong, because in New Orleans voodoo, doing a tongue is to stop communication, not to make sure someone never finds love like Gypsy was describing. So none of that makes any sense. But if Dee Dee did do anything or threaten to do anything or whatever it is that Gypsy has in her head, in her emails, she sounds like she believes that she's under some kind of curse. I personally think it's kind of a fantasy she's created, piecing things together, but I think she actually believes that. Like she has some sort of magical thinking going on where she actually believes that she's some character in a grand fantasy who was under a curse. Anyway, let me know what y'all think, friends. I might be wildly reaching here, but let's move on to the next mention. The time period for this one is August 2020. I believe this is when her and Keenan started talking again temporarily. And in addition to the vampire stuff, there's a few interesting things in here. Like Gypsy says in this one on August 8th, 2020, it seems like every breakup I have follows up with a breakdown. I was shaping my eyebrows and fucked them up, so I just shaved them off. LOL, they'll grow back. Tongue face. So that's interesting because I was just talking about Interview with a Vampire, and I've tried to show this clip before, and YouTube copyright struck it. So I will try to show it without sound and see how that goes. But in Interview with a Vampire, something Claudia does, the immortal child vampire, every time she has a meltdown about wanting to leave and be a real woman, is she runs off and cuts her hair. Well, because she's an immortal vampire, the hair instantly grows back. But that's the thing. She does this screaming, wild breakdown and cuts her hair. And if you remember back to the first email we read, Gypsy said, and they redacted the name Claudia, that she was a very theatrical child and she had the scene down where Claudia cuts her hair. She used to act it out. So to me, that's a big tie in how deeply she tried to recreate this movie themes in her psyche. Because as a little girl, she was fixated on it, apparently, because she knew her mom was in it. And we know that she was jealous of everything Dee Dee did. She would act out Claudia having meltdowns, shaving her hair. And to this day, in prison and since she's got out, when she has a meltdown, she starts cutting and shaving and pulling out all her hair. What do y'all think, friends? Am I right or am I reaching? Personally, I think she's probably surprised when it doesn't magically instantly grow back like Claudia's. I think she's that far into Lulu. What do y'all think, friends? Okay, so onto the actual point. Like I said, Gypsy is still completely obsessed with vampires in an actual way. And not that a lot of people aren't, it's just that for Gypsy, this plays into her murder, her crime. On August 10th, 2020, she emails, I had a very weird dream with you in it. So I was back in Springfield and I was wanting to buy this castle, mansion. Turns out it was occupied by vampires. I'm touring the place to buy it. And then you show up and take a look at the castle as well. I make the owners an offer and they accept. Then we have this party, ball to celebrate my new ownership of the castle. But the vampires are still living there as well. Then I find you standing ass naked in the moonlight in front of one of the larger windows in one of the bedrooms. You tell me to come closer to you and you tell me you've changed. You're not human anymore. I ask you, what do you mean? And then you tell me the house is not safe. Then the people who sold me the house are vampires and they also have werewolves and you've been bitten by a wolf. I tell you to stay there and I go to confront the owners. I rejoin the party. And the main point of the party was to make me into a vampire as well with one huge vamp orgy. And then you come up and tell me you have a plan to blow up the castle and get away, but you're still a wolf. So ending this crazy story, I'm human, you're a werewolf, downside, no cure for your extra hair, upside, sex is wild, and we live happily ever after, LOL. Now, obviously, she took a lot from Twilight there, but from what I understand, there's always been a lot of different opinions on whether or not Anne Rice was depicting vampire sex orgies in some of the scenes. I'll let y'all who are more versed in Anne Rice and Interview with a Vampire lore let me know. But I think that really demonstrates that, on into prison, on into her relationships with other men, pretty sure this is key in here, that she was still fantasizing about vampires. I don't think that was all Nick's idea. He might have already been into vampires, whatever, but yeah. Then we have an outbound here from Gypsy, September 19th, 2022. I'm not sure who this is to, but it says, Hey girly, how are you? Doing anything special for Halloween? I'm super stoked about the new Interview with a Vampire series on AMC. I love fall. It's my favorite time of year. The majority of this email is kind of boring, but there at the end, she says, Blink is coming to visit October 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's going to be Ryan, I assume. They were married at this time. She says, we are doing good. We're still adapting to our new roles as husband and wife. It's a new ball game for sure, but we are still just us. And I thought it was interesting up here. This person is replying back to Gypsy. It says, I support you either way. Okay, Gypsy, I support you either way, but the fact that he is reminding you of your mom is not good. And with the jealousy he has is a huge red flag. I just thought it was interesting that a year before she got out even, she was already being like, Ryan reminds me of my mom. Like, that should have been, people I feel should have warned Ryan. Not that Ryan would listen, he's delusional, but I feel like somebody should have said, hey, she might kill you if she's, if she's already saying, you remind her of her mom. You know what I mean, friends? And then we come to an email Gypsy sends to Ryan 2 months later. This is October 10th, 2022. So this would be after he came up for that visit. And Gypsy's feeling all mushy in the glow here. And she's like, my darling husband. And she does a bunch of her usual. But then down here, I thought this was interesting. She says, did you get to watch Interview with a Vampire? There's some humor in this one, particularly with how Lewis and Lestat are gay lovers. So yeah, Interview with a Vampire, definitely an obsession. She wants Ryan to watch it. Just thought that was interesting. And he replies to her, says, Interview with a Vampire. I really like this show. Love seeing New Orleans like that. Historical. Great choice of show, Snuggles. Then in the same month and year, Gypsy's talking to someone else. I don't know who this is, but it seems like it's a grouping of the same person, and it sounds like it's a married man, as usual, because down here, inbound on October 14th, it says, did you know that there are glass igloos in Iceland? You can sleep right under the northern lights. That is definitely on my bucket list. Okay, it sounds like it's a married man with a wife, or maybe a married woman with a wife. So I'm not seeing anything that definitely indicates gender. I'm just seeing right here, it says my wife and I go as often as we can. Actually, you know what? I bet this is a lesbian woman because of the way Gypsy talks. Listen to this. Iceland, I really want to see the Northern Lights. And the crazy dream I had was a vampire initiation with the lead vampire was a really hot chick and she had to drain me from somewhere really hot. LOL. I I really get the impression that Gypsy is primarily straight, like men are her focus, but she can't resist flirting and trying to make anyone desire her. You know what I mean, friends? Am I right or am I reaching? And if y'all disagree and think Gypsy's actually bi, I'm open to hearing it. Like, maybe I'm wrong. I've saw her come out to her dad and Christy and stuff in these emails, but there's only one girl you ever hear her talking to where she actually sounds kind of into her. Like, it's always men. Okay, so now that we've read all of her vampire talk, let's read her description here of her relationship with Nick. She sent this May 26, 2021. She says, the relationship between blank and I was essentially two individuals who had this shared fantasy of being in love, but had little to no experience in dating relationships or love. At the beginning, I was very innocent, and my view of love and relationships was through the vision of a Disney film. I believed in the romantic fairy tale true love, and blank became what I based my focus and vision on. However, he didn't fit the PG-rated version of Prince Charming. About 3 months into our relationship, he began talking about his alternate personality named Victor, who was a 500-year-old vampire. From this moment on, it began to take a dark turn from the romantic conversations we previously had. It was at this time he told me of his BDSM fetish. I was not aware of what this was when he first mentioned it to me. So yeah, I'll leave it there, friends. We've read this email before, but regardless of all the evidence that she knew was there, she was still trying to maintain in May 2021 that she didn't know anything about BDSM and vampires before Nick just took her into this dark, dark world. So yeah, friends, I thought that was interesting to point out. I'm interested to hear what y'all think in the comments, if I'm right or if I'm reaching. We know what Crime Ryan thinks, but let me know what y'all think, friends. Hope everyone's having a good day, and I hope to see you on Into the Weeds podcast live tonight. Should be a good one, friends.
Keep making content.